So, Haworth in Yorkshire. You probably think you know it, right? A beautiful little village, all cobbled streets, and of course, the Brontë sisters. But that's just scratching the surface. Okay, let's really get into this, because beneath those charming stones, there's a story of industry, disease, and folklore that's, well, it's way more shocking and, honestly, way more fascinating than any postcard could ever show you. I mean, just look at this. It's the quintessential English village, isn't it? You've got that steep, cobbled main street, the old stone cottages, and those rolling hills just fading into the mist. It's an image that's drawn people here for over 100 years. But that caption, it's hinting at the real story. And believe me, it's much, much darker than you think. That's what we're here to uncover. All right, so first things first, let's talk about the Haworth that everybody pictures. The one that's become this global cultural hotspot, a place of pilgrimage for literature fans from all over the world. Of course, at the very heart of it all is the Brontë legacy. You've got the Parsonage Museum, which is the actual house where the sisters wrote their incredible masterpieces. There's the historic church where their father, Patrick, preached, and that famous main street they would have walked down every single day. You even have the Heritage Steam Railway, which just adds to this whole feeling of a village perfectly frozen in time. This is the Haworth that we all know and love. But here's where we take a little turn. This idyllic scene, it wasn't just built on poetry and novels. Something else was driving this community forward. Something much louder, much grittier. So let's start peeling back the layers here, because behind all that literary charm, the Haworth of the 19th century was something else entirely. It was a noisy, crowded, industrial powerhouse. You see, the Industrial Revolution didn't just touch this village, it completely remade it. Those steep hills and fast-flowing streams, turns out they were perfect for powering mills. Haworth became a huge center for worsted wool. We're talking large factories and over 500 handlooms clicking and clacking away inside people's homes. The population just exploded, and that quiet little farming village was gone forever. Now, all this growth brought jobs, absolutely. But it came at a terrifying price. The village's basic infrastructure just could not keep up, and that led to a public health catastrophe that is, well, it's almost impossible to imagine today. And this is where the story gets really dark. This is the shocking truth at the heart of Haworth's history, a truth that's been hiding in plain sight, right there at the top of that beautiful main street. 25.8 years. Seriously, just let that number sink in for a moment. In the middle of the 19th century, right around the time the Brontes were writing their world-famous novels, the average life expectancy for someone living in Haworth was just under 26 years old. There was this government report in 1850 called the Babbage Report, and what it found was just horrific. Life expectancy in Haworth was actually lower than in the poorest, grimiest slums of London. Can you believe that? An incredible 41.6% of children died before they even reached the age of 6. And with no sewers, raw waste just ran in open channels right down the main street. It was, without exaggeration, one of the unhealthiest places in all of England. So you have to be asking, why? Why was it so deadly? Well, the answer is pretty gruesome, and it lies right next door to the Brontes' home. The graveyard at St. Michael's Church was dangerously, horrifically overcrowded. It's estimated that something like 44,000 bodies were buried in that one small plot. The ground became so saturated that rainwater would literally filter down through the decomposing remains and then seep directly into the wells that supplied the village's drinking water. The very ground was poisoning the people. But you know, these shocking numbers aren't just statistics. They're stories. They're about the real people who had to live through this and how this brutal environment shaped not just the Brontes, but the entire community. You know, we always picture Patrick Brontë as this stern, kind of remote father figure, right? But that's not the whole story, not even close. This guy was a hero. He was the one who had to conduct over 100 funerals a year. He saw the suffering up close and just refused to accept it. He campaigned tirelessly, he lobbied the government, and he personally commissioned that shocking Babbage report. He's the one who eventually secured a clean water supply that saved countless lives. And if you want a perfect example of how personal tragedy and this public crisis were all tangled up together, look no further than this one building. This charming little shop, now called the Cabinet of Curiosities, used to be the village apothecary. This is where the brilliant but troubled brother Branwell Brontë would come to buy laudanum for his opium and alcohol addiction. It's a heartbreaking story of personal decline, playing out on the very same streets where his father was fighting for public survival. And the Brontes weren't living in some isolated bubble. Their lives and their incredible work were totally shaped by the everyday people around them. People like Tabitha Aykroyd, the family servant who would fill their heads with all the local ghost stories and folklore, the very stories that would fuel their writing. Or think about John Brown, the village sexton. He was a friend of Branwell's, and he had the grim, heartbreaking job of burying his neighbors, his friends, and in the end, the very Brontë children he had watched grow up. These are the real human stories beneath the stones. So, when you have this incredibly beautiful but harsh landscape, and you mix it with a place where death is just everywhere, what do you get? Well, you get the perfect breeding ground for myths, legends, and ghost stories. Let's peel back that final layer. The moors surrounding Haworth were just buzzing with these stories. You had tales of Peg's lantern, this mysterious, ghostly light that was said to lure unlucky travelers into the bogs. There were legends of tiny fairy funerals seen on the moors, which were seen as an omen that a real death was coming. And of course, there's the ruined farmhouse, Top Withens, which for generations has been seen as the real-life Wuthering Heights, a place of pilgrimage for anyone searching for the wild, beating heart of Emily Bronte's novel. And you can feel that raw, untamed spirit, the spirit of the moors and all its folklore, baked right into the pages of their books. This famous quote from Wuthering Heights, "It's not just about love. It's about a connection to something as deep and as permanent as the rock beneath those moors." The hardship of this place didn't crush creativity. No, it forged it into something powerful, something eternal. So, at the end of the day, we're left with this question. What is Haworth? Is it just a pretty village to visit and admire? Or is it something more? A powerful reminder that sometimes the most beautiful art, the most timeless stories, don't come from a place of comfort, but are actually born from the grit, the struggle, and the dark realities that lie just beneath the surface.